Sarah and Thomas Floyd, Valerie and Austin Mears, Jean Ritchie, and Diana Wass. If there are any other apologies that we know of, perhaps you could put them in the chat and Lucy will record them.
Dean Catherine, we seem to have somebody sharing their screen at the moment.
Yes,
yes. So
it's
I'm sure somebody's, I'm sure somebody's done it inadvertently. I don't know if you could press the stop share button, please.
It's Judith Rich.
There'll be a stop share button on your Zoom screen.
Is it at the...
Oh, actually, I can.
That's better.
Right. Yes.
And I've got a meeting being recorded notice in the middle of my screen. I don't know if anybody else has that. Can we get rid of that somehow?
They can't hear us.
You press continue.
Yes.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's gone. If anyone else has that, you press continue and it goes. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Let's move on then to our minutes of the AGM that were held on Wednesday, the 14th of October. You've all been sent those, I hope. Oh yes, it was delayed because of the events of last year. So we've all received those minutes. Can I accept those minutes as a correct record of our meeting? Thank you. I see hands going up. Is that okay, Lucy? Thank you very much. And Lucy informs me that there weren't any matters arising from those minutes. None have been received. In which case, we can move on to the Dean's report. And now I'm going to do my best to share my screen deliberately. And we'll see how this goes. Here we are. I'm just going to share my screen. Oh yeah. I was just saying before you joined us how nerve-wracking it is doing this technology in front of lots of other people, but we seem to have got there in the end. So thank you for your patience. And I want to share an annual report with you from myself and chapter about lessons being learned in a really challenging year, but a year that actually has been full of faith and hope and love, lessons and opportunities.
Dean Catherine, I don't think we've got the right page from you.
I see. So are you seeing now a picture of the outside of the cathedral?
No, we're not.
Oh.
We're seeing your file manager, which has got all your different files on it.
I see. Would it be okay, or it'd be such a shame not to show you these pictures, would it be okay
if you double click on it, it should work.
If I double click on what?
On your report.
Friends.
On your friends presentation slide.
Okay. Do I need to stop sharing?
No, I don't think so. I think if you double click on it.
Double click on what?
Oh, we can see that you're hovering over an icon which is annual report to the friends in your file manager.
I see. I'm going to come out and go back in, and you can give me instructions now. Okay, I can see all of you. Can you see all of me?
Yes. So
right. Okay.
So if you press your share screen at the bottom, yeah, there we go.
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yep.
I just need to change it into the slideshow.
Yes. Can you see the cathedral and the...
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Lovely. Thank you so much. I don't understand this at all, but we'll press on. We'll press on. So lovely pictures of the cathedral inside and out. Over the last year, as I'm sure you'll know and understand, that every aspect of life has been affected by our attempts to combat the coronavirus and its effects.
No, we'll knock him over.
It would be really good if everybody could mute themselves other than me. Thank you. Thank you. Over the last year, some vulnerabilities at the cathedral have been revealed, but also enormous strengths and ingenuities have been discovered. And we have certainly learnt lessons about what is most important. The financial year began during the first lockdown. How strange it was to see the cathedral locked and the inner close so quiet. There was the message, stay home and save lives, to support the overstretched NHS, which led to the closure of cathedrals and churches across the nation. And as the shop and the cathedral and the refectory closed, all social and volunteering activities ceased and many staff were furloughed. And we discovered that when all else ceased, cathedral life became prayer, worship, pastoral activity, and encouragement. And although the cathedral building was closed, the cathedral community, as with so many churches across the land, definitely remained active and alive. And you'll see here a whole range of the daily films that we did. Do you remember the daily reflections that we did? It's quite difficult to remember back to those times, but we're still doing films and reflections. Necessity became the mother of invention, and the clergy and the vergers and the musicians worked within changing guidelines through the year, with 2 further lockdowns, to provide worship with music whenever possible. And the cathedral experienced a revolution in digital activity. Prayer and worship, pastoral care and encouragement took place online and by telephone calls and letters in the post. Worship for Easter 2020 took place entirely online, with services filmed by the clergy. And as we were unable to enter church at that time, the films took place in our homes and gardens. And some of you might remember this amazing service that took place with the doors open at the end of my long gallery in the deanery. That was on Maunday Thursday. And the effort proved imaginative and supportive for our own congregations and for new worldwide audiences. Now, during the year, a very significant thing happened with the support of the Friends. We couldn't have done this without you, which was that you invested in broadcasting technology in the cathedral, which vastly increased our capabilities and also our ambitions to be able to reach and engage with the whole world. And we have to pay tribute to our vergers who've been cameramen and whose skill now is astounding and surprises broadcasting professionals. At times during the last year, congregations could come to worship. At other times, only private prayer and reflection were allowed. Morning prayer took place on Zoom and evensong was live streamed. And throughout the year, fellowship took place on Zoom, gathering a worldwide community. Daily reflections from the clergy and weekly written messages from myself and a weekly column for the Hampshire Chronicle have been well received. Some services and events during the year were cancelled, including the Southern Cathedrals Festival, funerals, weddings, and ordinations carried on in a COVID compliant way with small physical congregations, but live streamed congregations. Sunday worship congregations resumed on Passion Sunday, Holy Week and Easter 2021. We were able to have a complete programme of worship in the building with congregations and a complete live stream. We had taken quite a journey. Just a word about Cathedral Finances, and this waterfall tells a story all on its own. You can see the red blocks are where we lost visitor income, shop income, refectory, events and facility income, and income at Christmas, and investment and property income. Many staff were furloughed, which left only a core operational team. Expenditure was cut, but we were very successful at achieving grant funding. We saved costs, staff were on furloughs, and we received grants. We learnt the value of holding reserves, and we will come out of this last year with a deficit, but much smaller than it might have been. As you'll see, we were very successful at receiving grant funding, and we're very, very grateful for grants from the Friends as well. We began online giving and offering contactless giving points in the cathedral and a contactless plate. Many people gave generous donations during the year. The pandemic's been a catalyst for many things in the cathedral, and I'll just mention a couple of themes. One is digital cathedral and a commitment to connection wherever you are. We want to continue this beyond the pandemic. We're not going to stop live streaming now we've discovered it and its potential. We also will continue with Zoom meetings when they're useful. I think the Friends will be too. We've discovered that on a cold winter's evening, many more people can come to an event when it's on Zoom than if it were in person. So this will continue to be useful, but obviously we really look forward to face-to-face social gatherings. Also, during the last year, we've realised how important it is to care for our home, both our cathedral building and estate, but also our global home. And we're working now very seriously to be carbon neutral by 2030, to look at biodiversity and how to be a much more environmentally sustainable place. We realised that we can work with the Pilgrim School and Wolvesey and the Bishop's Office to have a green estate for maximum impact. And you'll know we've been awarded a silver award, but we want to obtain a gold one as soon as possible. Along with digital and green cathedral, another theme is creative cathedral, and we realise how we can connect and engage with wider public through creativity. You may remember that during lockdown we had some lovely installations by Jill Sakakini, and through the creative arts we know we can relate to people of all ages and diverse audiences. We want to be a growing cathedral. The pandemic has revealed how much people need faith and hope and love. We've seen the wonderful possibility for selfless service and love during the year. And we feel that our values and our vision have been tested, but have stood up really well. I'm very glad to say that, although we've lost one of our residentiary canons, Mark Collinson, who was canon principal, we're replacing this with a fourth residentiary canon, a canon missioner, and we'll soon be able to announce who that is. We're also absolutely committed to continuing one cathedral and a commitment to everyone matters. We're called to be a community of safety and care for everyone. Then just finally, I'll talk about some of the issues coming out of this difficult year and looking to the future. Jill Sakakini gave us this wonderful installation when we reopened the cathedral, and time as it ties in with our creative cathedral aspirations. When the choir came back, when the boy choristers came back, that was a lovely news story, and you see it was on both South Today and Meridian. By the way, you see there Shane, one of our head choristers, who has a scholarship to Eton. We're very, very proud of Shane. And you'll remember that on March the 23rd, we had a National Day of Remembrance, and we planned a liturgy around a lovely cross of hope on the floor of the empty nave. This became the anchor location for the BBC National Programme of Silence at Noon. And we were very proud of that the cathedral and this huge, humble green cross spoke to people of sacrifice and hope and was viewed across the nation, and our prayers were heard. In the coming year, we're going to, just for your information, seek to build on what we're learning about events that attract wider audiences and can speak and welcome people to the cathedral in more diverse ways. We're also going to begin to implement a new cathedral measure that will govern English cathedrals across the land. So the new cathedral measure will be coming in 2022, I think, and we're bringing in changes in anticipation of this, including applying for charitable status with the Charity Commission. We've also, as you know, just had a sky safeguarding audit, an independent audit, along with all the other cathedrals in the land. Our audit went very well. Thank you to everyone who took part in that, and we will be building on that audit. And also the organ appeal finally was postponed in 2020 and will resume later this year to enable necessary work to proceed in 2023. Just some personal, some issues now that involve individual people. During the year, we said farewell to our Receiver General, Canon Annabel Boyce, who retired. And in her place, because of how my screen is, I can't see Alison Evans there. You might just have to change your picture to be able to see Alison Evans. Annabel's role was replaced by two people, Alison Evans, our COO, who joins us now, and Gary Carpenter, our CFO. That's a part-time role. So we were very, very pleased to welcome Alison and Gary, and they've both already made a really strong contribution to our team. That's Mark Collinson there, who left the cathedral for full-time work in the diocese, and his role will be replaced by a canon missioner. Also, I know we have Lorna Atwell with us this morning. It's great to see you, Lorna. I'm just now going to share a photograph of dear James, who we sadly have lost in this last year. His cathedral requiem funeral was joined by a small congregation here, but a worldwide congregation on the live stream. And it was a very sad but very great privilege for us to host that service. We also sadly said farewell to two of our lay clerks last year, Simon Barwood and Tim Pride. I think you will remember both of them. But after this very difficult and challenging year, Chapter's profoundly grateful to everyone who plays a part in the cathedral for their commitment to working with all the changes and chances of this time. And that's certainly true for the Friends of Winchester Cathedral, and how you've magnificently risen to the challenge of keeping the life of the Friends and their support of the cathedral going during the year. I'm really proud of how we've all responded. Many important lessons have been learnt that open up future possibilities for ministry and for work and for our life together. And we face the future with faith and hope and love. And I want to thank the Friends of Winchester Cathedral as we celebrate the 90th anniversary of this association. and we look forward to the future with you. Thank you very much. There now, can we all see one another again? That's great, thank you very much. If anyone has any questions for me or observations, could you put them in the chat? And we'll monitor those as we go along and come back to them if we have time. So now we're going to move on to my colleague, Alison Evans, as I attempted to introduce her to you earlier. I'm not sure if you were able to see her picture, but you can see her in the flesh now. Alison Evans joins us. There she is. There she is. Can everybody see Alison? You might start to see her when she starts to speak. Welcome, Alison.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Catherine, and thank you for the invitation to join your AGM. I'm sorry it's not in person, but hopefully that will be long in the future. Bruce has asked me to do a short introduction about myself. So my job is Chief Operating Officer, as Dean Catherine has said, with my colleague Gary, the Chief Finance Officer. So the two of us have very shared interests and goals, and it's a wonderful working relationship, I feel. So for me personally, my degree was in landscape architecture, and I've retained a lifelong interest in architecture and design and the environment. And some years later in my career, I was lecturing in the conservation of historic landscape. I joined the National Trust in 2007 as the General Manager at Mottisfont. So many of you, I think, are probably very familiar with Mottisfont. When I joined it, it was closed in the winter. It was only open 5 days a week in the summer. And we had 120,000 visitors, of whom a third came in June to see the roses. And if it rained, they didn't come because everybody knew that single flowering roses, old-fashioned roses, only flower once. So there's no point in coming again. So a very risky and fragile operation. So my job was to make it sustainable, which has echoes of what I do nowadays. We put in an exhibition gallery on the top floor where I used to live in one section of it. The living room was bigger than the whole of my previous house in floor area. But I think it's much better as an exhibition gallery. And that taught us an awful lot about changing things. So people have something different to come back and look at, but within a framework of what remains and is appreciated. So I was there for nearly 6 years, and then I became an assistant director in the region with a specialism in curatorship and, not surprisingly, gardens, but also visitor engagement. So I'm really keen on bringing in as many people as possible and being scholarly, but also being quite accessible in the way that we bring things. Some people call it dumbing down. I don't think that at all. I see it as an entry point into the wonderful world of culture and art and history, and of course the cathedral. So I joined the cathedral back at the end of November last year. I keep on saying I'm new. At some point I'm going to have to stop saying that. And I've said a number of times to Dean Catherine and colleagues that it feels as though all of my previous career and my personal life has come together in this job. So I'm a practicing Christian. I've been a member of the congregation at Salisbury Cathedral since 2008, and including as a volunteer. So I've seen it hopefully on both sides of the fence and have some understanding of volunteering as well as being employed. I've been tasked by Chapter to help create a sustainable business. The pandemic just exposed really how much of a reliance we had on international visitors and cruise ships, and that's not sustainable. And particularly, we might well have another worldwide pandemic, mightn't we? So we need to really ensure that we've got a solid basis on which we can earn income, because the income supports the mission of the cathedral, as you know. My job is in two halves. So half of it with Gary is the sustainable business. The other half is caring for the cathedral, but also the estate. And we've been spending a lot of time and directing the works team in particular to start work on the buildings around the estate. You might have seen the painters and the carpenters and the masons, all busy working on various projects which are quite visible, which really pleases me because I think that gives a sense of the whole life of the cathedral. To create a sustainable business, we can only do that with the generosity and support of our stakeholders, the whole community around Winchester and in Hampshire and the diocese, and particularly with you, the friends. I've had such a marvellous welcome from people I have come across at various trustee meetings, and I just want to thank you so much for everything that you do. We've, of course, you paid for the live streaming, which has been an unqualified success, and I think has astonished us all with just the possibilities of what we can do with it, and again in the future to push it even further. And at the last trustee meeting, the Friends generously agreed to fund an electric truck, which we're just, the head gardener's about to test a couple to run around the estate. That sort of investment might not seem obvious, but it transforms the working life of our teams. Rather than pushing a rather heavy wheelbarrow all across everywhere, they can be so much more efficient, and I'm delighted about that. So that apart from thinking about how we can both save money but where we should invest, the two big things on my mind, which I'd like to bring back to you in the future, are what we're calling the creative programming plan, which will be changing displays and exhibitions within the cathedral. So you'll start to see, as we come to the winter, a programme of those. And secondly, a master plan. And that's to step back and take a whole look at the cathedral and its estate and think about where we would like to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Do we want to change the layout of the outer close, for instance, to make the cathedral more welcoming? Where do we do practical things like build new toilets, because that's certainly needed? So this master plan will help us think about how much money we need to spend, how we're going to raise it, and in what order. And I think that's all I'd like to say. Bruce asked me to be brief. I hope that was brief enough, Bruce. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Excellent, thank you. So now I hand over to our chairman, Bruce Parker.
Well, good morning, everybody. I do just want to thank our team for all that they've done in this very difficult year. We took the decision that we wanted to demonstrate our credentials, if you like, that we weren't just a body of people who raise money to support the cathedral, most important, of course, though that is, but we are also a group that whenever we can, we mix and support each other, hence the coffee mornings, the lectures, the outings and so on that we organise. And unlike other Cathedral Friends organisations who more or less, I think we discovered, have more or less closed down during the pandemic, we upped our game, if you like, and zoomed into the go mode. Sorry, Dean Catherine, were you saying something? No.
No, I was laughing at your Zoom mode. It was lovely.
Yeah, right. So we decided that we wouldn't charge for our lectures and so on, but we've actually made more. We've received more actually in donations than we normally would. So putting our arms around members has actually paid off in a financial way. And I know many of you have been very grateful for the gatherings, albeit online, that have been arranged. I mean, the chance to mix, even if it wasn't person to person. Now, I just want to thank Lucy, of course, was the organizer of all these talks. She was received a Mayor's Award, very rightly, and for all the work she did. It was absolutely amazing. Other people in the office, we've got two others, of course. Liesl has worked away too. Her Herculean effort, updating all our records, resulted in a substantial gift aid payment from HMRC. Leslie too, although imprisoned in Portugal by COVID for many months, has worked away in the office in her much admired Leslie way. We have a wonderful band of trustees too. I won't go through everyone by name, but I think I must thank David Fellows for his painstaking work on the accounts. Also Tom Watson for pushing hard for us to celebrate our 90th anniversary, one of which results of which will be this afternoon and the service. We have great supports from our president, the Dean, and indeed our vice presidents who've joined us by Zoom. I can see, I think, the Lord Lieutenant Nigel Atkinson. Thank you, Nigel, for your support. Jean Ritchie, Chairman of the Cathedral Council. I noticed too, one of our vice presidents is the Mayor, Vivian. We haven't met Vivian, but we will this afternoon, I hope. Thank you to Alison and Gary, who've taken over from the previous Receiver General, we heard from just now, and indeed others in number 9, Zoe, Jill, the newly invigorated media team, and really all the cathedral staff. As you'd expect, I do want to emphasize this actually, because I don't think it was the case many years ago. All the friends, all the staff, all the cathedral staff are really friends of the friends, and it is wonderful the way that we've all got together and worked together. Can I too, at the moment, just welcome some friends across the pond who've got out of bed to join us. Gordon Mott, who's been a loyal friend for many years, and we've welcomed him here in person on so many occasions. And Tim and Christine Stalter, I think, are with us too. I just hope you're not all too bleary-eyed this morning, but good morning, America. Really, really nice to see you. So I think that's all I've got to say. I don't want to be too long here. Can I just say finally, Madam Dean, that I think we friends in this 90th year are in a good place. And I have to say, I'm very proud indeed to be your chairman. It is my 50th anniversary as a member, and you know, I couldn't be more proud to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. And if I may, I don't want to let this opportunity pass without saying something about Bruce and enabling us to express our thanks to him, because it is indeed the 50th year of his membership of the Friends of Winchester Cathedral, which is really astonishing, Bruce. And if the Friends are in a good place, it's really a great deal down to you and the way that you lead us. And we're so grateful to have a chairman with such skill, but also such wisdom and good judgment. It's really a pleasure to work with you and to see you carrying out your work. Thank you so much. We're so grateful. And from the point of view of the Friends and from the point of view of the Cathedral, it was a really good day when you joined the Friends of the Cathedral. And I think you became a trustee first in 1984, and then you joined the board again in 2011 to do a particular job. And then you became the chairman in 2013, I think. And I think you're never, ever going to be able to escape from the Friends of the Winchester Cathedral now. We won't let you, but we're so grateful. And for me, really, Bruce, you display the best sort of servant leadership. You are our leader, but you're also a wonderful servant of the Friends of the Cathedral, and we're tremendously grateful and thank God for you. Thank you very much.
I'm usually speechless. Thank you.
Shall we move swiftly on? We're going to go on to the director's report now.
Thank you, Dean Catherine. Good morning to all of you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the director of the Friends, Lucy Hutchin. Now, usually at the AGM, I talk about a wide variety of events that we've held over the year, an annual lecture, a volunteer tea, maybe a legacy event or a new member event. But for this past year, it's been quite one-dimensional because it's been Zoom and Zoom and Zoom. But actually, when you think about it, what a rich and varied year it's been, which has provided us all with so many opportunities for learning about new topics, about the cathedral and things related to it. What a wonderful sense of community we've all had despite not seeing each other. We started 2020 with David Rymel's talk about the Cathedral archives, and I'm still so grateful for David for being so brave and saying he'd do that talk when he'd only just had a broadband installed at home. He'd never used Zoom before, and I think it really set us off on the right path of the journey. I think 60 of you joined us back in April, and a lot of those 60 have been with us on the whole journey. We then had talks during the summer from Pat Graffiti in the Cathedral about the memorials in the Cathedral by Julie Adams. We had a wonderful illustrated talk about the Presbytery bosses by Stephen Jones. We had two university lecturers from the University of Winchester came and talked to us. And it really kept people going over the summer. I was branded a little bit of a pessimist when I said to the trustees that I was going to organise Zoom talks for the autumn. They thought I was being a little bit defeatist, but I was so glad I did. And we welcomed the Dean in September, talking about the lessons that she hadn't been taught in Theology College. And we had a wonderful talk about the cathedral stone, what the cathedral's made of. Viv Ferris talked about the two famous Henrys from the cathedral. And then we went a little bit further afield with a talk from Cindy Wood about the Chantry Chapels in Westminster Abbey. So that was the autumn. And we thought it had all been it had reached a lot of people, but little did I know that when we got to lockdown 3, it would become even bigger. And in the early days of January, I think that people really felt that as we were locked down again in dark months, people really needed to have something in their diary, something to think about, something to amuse themselves. And for the talks in January and February, we had 250 people for Joanna's talk about Mary I. In fact, Steve Bryan, his office had to upgrade their Zoom capacity from the 100 limit to the 500 for when we did our virtual tour of Westminster. So the early months of the year, we really did have good audiences for our Zoom talks, which has continued through the spring. We've had really strong bonds. I mean, there's lots of people that I really feel I know, but I've only talked to on the phone or over email, and I am really looking forward to meeting people in person. We also held coffee mornings, which were small groups, but we had really discovered some very strong bonds through those. The Mary Rose talk that we ran came from an idea on a coffee morning. And actually our final coffee morning, people were talking about old books, and people ended up going to their bookshelves and getting a book off their bookshelves and sharing them. And I just really thought that summed up the strength of those conversations. Looking forward, obviously we don't know what the autumn will hold, but as Dean Catherine said, we hope to not go back. We really value the strength of the reach we've had. There are people who aren't keen on travelling in afternoons or evenings, live too far away. I think we've recognised that Zoom means you can see presentation much better than in the Paul Woodhouse suite. So we're looking at how we can continue our online engagement even when we can meet in person. Just want to say, during this year, as well as the events programme, I have spent time on administrative matters for the Friends. I've done work on our safeguarding policy, data protection, complaints policies. All our trustees have undergone some specialist training for charity trustees on safeguarding, which has sat alongside the cathedral audit work. The administration of the Board of Trustees has continued despite no face-to-face meetings. We held 4 board meetings on Zoom and committee meetings as well. However, I would say that telephone does still remain the preferred communications mean between myself and Bruce. And Bruce and I do have an early morning phone call most mornings. I would just like to end by saying thank you. Thank you to our volunteers. our volunteers did help us get the mailing out in January. That's the really heavy one where we've got the record in it, so it's expensive to post. So it was wonderful. We developed some new procedures, so people came to the door with a timed appointment with masks on, and everybody helped deliver that, saving us many hundreds of pounds in postage. Everyone was then set up to do it in January again, but it wasn't appropriate with the lockdown. But I was pleased to see the volunteers back in June to help with the mailing. So thank you very much to all of you for doing that work for us. Thank you also to everyone I work with in the cathedral, particularly Zoe, the marketing team, Alison on reception, finance, and the vergers as well. I really couldn't do what I do without all of your support. And thank you to Leslie and Lisa for everything they've done in the office. It has been a funny old year, as we know, but they've really kind of got through it with a cheerful smile on their face and worked extremely hard. And finally, just want to say thank you very much to all the trustees who put so much into this role and support me so much, and particularly Bruce. I don't think I can say anything which beats what Dean Catherine's just said, but I really thank Bruce for all his professional and personal support. Now I hope to see as many of you as possible later on. I think the weather forecast means that it will hopefully be dry. The service is at 4:30 in the nave, and I think we will be around from about 3 o'clock if anybody wants to come to the Cathedral Cafe for a cup of tea. We've got a photographer joining us to take some photos of the day, so it'd be nice to have a few kind of group shots of people if you are there. So yes, that's all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lucy, and a round of applause for Lucy. Good work. Thank you. Thank you. So let's move on now to our report from our Honorary Treasurer. Over to David.
Good morning, everyone. It's time for the figures man to test your powers of concentration. So let's get cracking with this challenge. A challenge for me to make it interesting anyway. I'm going to assume that you're able to glance at the adapted statement of financial activities spreadsheet that Lucy attached to her Zoom email on Wednesday, but not to worry if you can't, as I'm only going to take you through the headline figures. Just to emphasize that the spreadsheet covers only the unrestricted figures, but that's the main bulk of everything anyway. But before I start, I'd just like to put the past year's results into some sort of perspective for you, namely the enforced restraints on our normal activities brought about by COVID, of course. Way back in May last year, we had produced 3 forecasts for the year. There was a time not long ago when to produce 1 was an effort, but we produced 3, namely 1, normal, 2, no activity until September 2020, and 3, none until January this year. Well, of course, we still haven't had any activity, by which I mean actual events per se. However, as you all well know, and much thanks to the initiative and energy of Lucy and others, we've been able to take advantage of live streaming technology, which has resulted in some remarkable figures, far surpassing even our wildest dreams, let alone even our most optimistic forecasting. So what does that say about forecasting, or at least my abilities to forecast? So here goes with the spreadsheet, very as briefly as I can make it. Line 1, and I'm not going to go through every line. Our income from publications and events was only down by 4%. Our virtual events have been a huge success, obviously, whilst we sold over £5,000 worth of Christmas cards. So thank you all so much for supporting those 2 crucial areas of activity. Line 2, our administration costs were 15% lower than in the previous year, albeit this would have read 9% were it not for the previous year's heavy expenditure on the thoroughly worthwhile cost of digitization of the record. Tom Watson's wonderful work. So the combination of all this shows up in line 3, namely that net costs are down by 19%. Now let's move on to line 6, where we have a net surplus of just over £76,000, dramatically up by 45% on the previous year's not bad 52,000. We not only benefited from some in-depth delving around in the database, which Bruce, I think, referred to, which enabled a one-off recovery of over £7,000 in gift aid that, well, I'll spare you the detail, over this and the previous 3 years, but also from some really generous out-of-the-blue donations totaling over £8,000, when we might hope to receive just a few £100 in a normal year. Yet more thanks to you, good people. And by the way, that 8,000 does not really include donations directly associated, at least as far as we could tell, to the lectures. This has just come out of the blue, created by just the general goodwill created by the team. Moving on to line 7, annual grants, down, unusually down from the previous year's 70,000 to this year's 65,000. And this was purely down to there being no call for our usual grant to cover cathedral flowers, normally £5,000 to £6,000, due obviously to the closure of the cathedral. Nevertheless, we continued as ever with our support of the cathedral's wonderful choral tradition with a £48,000 grant. Line 8, we actually have a net surplus of just over £11,000 this year. That's after annual grants, but before legacies. Whereas we have traditionally run at a deficit due to our heavy commitment to annual grants. And by the way, our annual grant application for the cathedral, which we've recently approved, is back up to normal levels this year, going to be 73,500. Please don't expect a surplus every year, unless, of course, you're planning to make some more of those particularly generous miscellaneous donations. Well, why not? Why not? Come on, let's have them. Then comes our legacy income on line 9, a very welcome £50,000 or so, albeit that's somewhat dwarfed by the previous year's monumental £408,000. We simply cannot thank enough those deceased members and their families who have given so very, very generously. And of course, we thank those of you who have pledged to do likewise at some stage in the, I hope not, no, let's get this the right way around, sometime ahead anyway. Line 10, on special grants, we were able to approve £115,000, of which half, £57,000, given to purchase the live streaming equipment, which we have been talking about. And just to refer briefly to line 12, I should mention that our investments have bounced back well again after the heavy hit suffered to the stock markets in February and March last year, of course, brought about by COVID. So in summary on the subject of our figures, I'm delighted to report that over the past 5 years, the Friends have been in a position to award over £1.2 million in annual and special grants. Wow. And as I have said before, this is indeed some friendship organization we have here. Thank you all so very much again. I'm going to finish with a few words about some of the dynamics of our membership, focusing on our ongoing efforts to streamline our administration and thereby to increase our ability to support our beloved cathedral. The first area, this is all fairly dull stuff, but important. It might apply to you. The first area is the method of payment, the way you pay us. As you will recall, we have been having a real drive on trying to convert as many of you as possible onto direct debits. Well, you've been responding pretty well, I'd say, with almost 2/3 of you now using this, by far the most efficient means of payment and of keeping up with any changes. A further 1/4 of you are on standing orders. That's okay, but how we'd love it if you could bear to follow the example of those 2/3 of your fellow members by having sufficient faith in us to move over to DDs, direct debits. It would spare both you and our, after all, hard-pressed staff, any hassle and stress as and when the time comes to, dare I say it, increase subscription levels a little. This leaves just 11% of you who pay your subscriptions by credit card, cash, or check, which could be worse, I suppose, but it still leaves 200 or so members that we have to monitor and, dare I say it, sometimes even cajole a wee bit. The second topic is gift aid. Our database tells us that 72% of you have kindly gift aided your subscriptions and donations, which is marvelous. However, the corollary of that is that there are a further 28% of our supporters who haven't and who could possibly enable advantage to be taken of gift aid. But either, dare I say it, they haven't bothered to, or to be fair, in some cases, I'm sure, they may not be in a position to sign a gift aid declaration. Either way, a whopping 25% on top of those kind subscriptions or donation goes begging. This if only we could turn that round and reduce that 28%, we just carry on enhancing our ability to support the cathedral. Briefly back to legacies, if I may, it would be remiss of me not to at least remind you that our legacy income is the real icing on the cake for us. £820,000 in the last 5 years has been received. So please take time out to consider that surely your beneficiaries would not begrudge just some part of your estate coming our way, especially bearing in mind that the accompanying saving inheritance tax to those beneficiaries. After all, they would only be losing out on 60% of whatever the amount of your legacy might be. So give that some thought. And finally, a quick word about our auditors, or more accurately, I should call them our independent examiners. At last year's AGM, Mazars were reappointed to perform this annual task, reappointed by the AGM. But not long afterwards, we learned that they had taken the decision to withdraw from this type of work. Much thanks to some careful due diligence, buzzards were appointed by the cathedral. So having reviewed the situation, your trustees readily agreed to follow suit. And I have to say, we've been delighted by the swift and efficient service they offered us this year. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for staying connected. I'll hand you back to the Dean.
Thank you very much, David, and an exemplary report for your clarity. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the way that you help us understand the finances. Again, I will invite any comments or questions in the chat, which we will monitor and deal with or get back to you about. So I think I can move on then to I think we've done item 10. Yeah, and so we'll move on to item 11. Does David...
We did it last year.
Yes.
But the trustees took the decision on behalf of, I think we need to ratify and move on next year.
Fine. Thank you very much. No, fine, thank you. We'll move on to elections, which is item 11 on the agenda. Sorry, David.
Perhaps I'm being pedantic, but I can't help it. We have the meeting hasn't approved next year's auditors.
Right, and
so
we're proposing buzzards. Yeah. Is the meeting happy with that proposal of buzzards who are also now the cathedral auditors? Would you like to show me with your real finger or with your yellow screen finger? Well done, thank you very much. I think that that's enough for us to approve the auditors' buzzards. Thank you very much. So we will move on now to the election of board members. And when I request a proposer and a seconder, I'm requesting these from outside of the current board. So if current board members could just restrain themselves from jumping in and proposing and seconding, though I know they'll probably be keen to. if I could invite those of you who aren't trustees to propose and second. We need a proposer for the reappointment. Oh, I'm so sorry. I needed to do this properly. For the reappointment of the independent examiners, which we've just voted on, but I did need a proposer. Would one of you quickly indicate that you would be a proposer who isn't a current board member? Norman Boakes, I saw your hand first. Would someone like to second that, who isn't on the Board of Trustees? Lovely, no. Angela Morris, I've seen your name and your hand. Thank you very much. So I will take that as voted on, but we now do have a proposer and a seconder. Now, in terms of the board, current trustees Bruce Parker and Tom Watson have reached the end of their 3-year terms. Bruce Parker and Tom Watson. We are grateful that they are willing to stand for re-election. Could I, however, have a proposer for the re-election of Bruce Parker? Oh, all those hands going up so quickly. Thank you very much. And Margaret, you're not on the board, are you? So
No.
Margaret
Braddock.
Margaret Braddock, and seconded by Julian, who also isn't on the board currently. So Julian can be the seconder. Bruce, thank goodness. We have a proposer and a seconder. Could the members now vote to approve the appointment of Bruce Parker as trustee for a further 3-year term by using their thumbs up buttons or their hands? Thank you very much. Thank you, Bruce. We're not going to let you go yet.
Greatly honoured, thank you.
50 years is not enough. Got to carry on. And now, could I have a proposer who isn't on the board, please, for the re-election of Tom? Jenny Hobbs has put her hand up and Diane Hughes has seconded. Please could the members now vote to approve the appointment of Tom Watson as trustee for a further 3-year term? Great, that's lovely. Thank you so much. We've got a rousing vote of confidence in both Bruce and Tom. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to look at Lucy and check that she's happy with everything, all that business that we've just done.
Yes.
And it gives me great pleasure now to turn to item 12 and some words about our 90th anniversary from Tom Watson.
Thank you, Dean Catherine, and thanks to everyone for attending our virtual AGM. So let's now celebrate the 90th anniversary of the founding of the Friends of Winchester Cathedral. That event took place on the 15th of July, 1931 at the Winchester Guildhall and was held after the annual Cathedral Festival service to celebrate St. Swithin's Day. The meeting was arranged at fairly short notice to discuss a proposal to form a Friends Association at our cathedral. And when the proposal was put to the meeting, it was unanimously approved with 120 members signing up immediately. Within 9 months, there were more than 500 members, and within 2 years, over 1,000 members were registered. The Friends found immediate acceptance and were quickly into action supporting the Dean and Chapter. Our Friends Association was the 10th to be formed in England, was part of a really important movement to open cathedrals up to worshippers and visitors. Cathedrals in the early 1920s had a reputation of being rather closed places, but this changed in the mid-1920s with the result that cathedrals became the popular places for worship and visiting that they are today. Now, let me tell you a little of what we had planned today, and planning actually started about 2 years ago. The day would have started with communion at 8, followed by coffee and pastries. There were to be special, funded by the Friends, and graffiti tours of the cathedral. Our AGM was to be held 2:30 on the refectory lawn, followed by afternoon tea and a recital by handbell ringers. However, the handbells follow at the end of our AGM, so wait on, hold on afterwards. At afternoon tea, we had planned to cut a special 90th birthday cake, at which nonagenarian members would cut ceremoniously. We believe, in fact, we really know that our oldest member is Jane Lady Portal, who is now, I have permission to tell you, 96. She's also our longest serving member, having joined the Friends some 79 years ago in 1942. Lady Portal is also our line of contact with Dean Gordon Selwyn, who set up the Friends. Dean Selwyn was her stepfather and our dynamic first chairman. As usual, the cathedral bells will ring before our annual Evensong service. Evensong this year contains a liturgy and a structure which is close to that of 1931, including a special procession to both the shrine places of St. Swithin in the Retrochoir and the Old Minster site. As Lucy said earlier, you're most welcome to attend the service or follow it on live stream, which, as everyone has been telling you, has been funded by the Friends. So let's now conclude by remembering our formation in 1931, all our achievements of the past 90 years, and look forward to our strong prospects for many decades to come. And don't forget to put July 2031 in your diary for our centenary. Thank you, Dean Catherine, back to you.
I love having dates in the diary. 2031. It's in. Now, Lucy, I think we're coming to our handbells. This is what we would have heard live.
Yes, so as the AGM ends, we've got two sound clips of the handbell ringers that I'm going to play for you in a minute. So these two tunes are going to be played by a team of 6 cathedral handbell ringers. The tunes are the hymn, Now We Thank We All Our God, and the well-known pop song Winchester Cathedral. The ringers that are pictured here are Lucy Hopkins-Till, who's the director, Mike Hopkins-Till, Marion Danielle, Paul Tanner, Jenny Watson, and Jenny Hewell. It had been planned to have a recital at the tea, but that couldn't happen. But the team did record it in their own homes this week. And later, 4 of this team, Lucy, Mike, Jenny, and Jean, will be joined by 2 other bell ringers ringing the cathedral bells ahead of the service. So please do listen to those before you go into the service. And we really thank them for giving their time to help us with this. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide, and we hopefully the audio clip will work. And then on to the second one, which I think is slightly shorter to finish. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that.
So thank you everyone for attending and for everyone who's contributed this morning. See lots of you this afternoon, I hope, either physically or digitally, and God bless you all. Thank you. Here's to the next 10 years. Thank you. Thank you.